of human development. As we discussed earlier, speed and flexibility or suppleness based on chronological age. All the research is based on chronological age. Skill, stamina, and strength based on developmental age. And the biomarkers are the onset of the growth spurt, peak after growth decelerates, and the onset of the menarche for the female athletes. Sensitive periods are a time of increased opportunity to positively affect development. Windows of opportunity for accelerated adaptation to training by Viru. And Viru and his research group is one of the most sophisticated physiology around the world. He's an Estonian. He has the entire Soviet Eastern Bloc literature and the entire Western literature. He published about 5 or 6 books, very influential. His books are very difficult to read. This is a typical German example of let's say the green is basically, those are the sensitive periods to develop coordination, agility, rapidness of motor reaction, speed of locomotion, extensive aerobic endurance, etc., etc. This is a German opinion. So these are the sensitive periods. You can see the sensitive periods. The only challenge with this is all based on chronological age. Relative age and developmental age are not included in these charts. This is a Soviet example by Vorontsov, who is a swimming coach from the Soviet Union, coaching in Bath, England now. Again, you can see identifying the sensitive periods. Then adaptation can be exploited in a much better rate. This is ours, but it's so complex I don't want to get into it. Here is Miro, a Finnish physiologist and expert. You can see that here are the ages down here, and he identified the trainability, speed, stride rate, speed, stride length, strength, speed, the solid speed, strength, flexibility, skill and technique, aerobic endurance, and anaerobic endurance. You can see that very different countries are identifying those sensitive periods. They are different interpretations, but the trends are very much the same everywhere. Canadian Coaching Association, the white is not a priority, the red shouldn't be done. You shouldn't train these faculties here. And you have moderately trained the orange, and the green light is those systems are fully trainable. These are for females, and these are for males. Very different chart, as you can see, the difference between males and females. By the way, this will be available in a PDF file for you. You can download it for yourself and can look into the details. This is the article I mentioned about Viru. It's critical periods in the development of performance capacity during childhood and adolescence. Summarizes the literature extremely well. All the key information are on this document. Trainability of 5 S's. All systems are always trainable. If you're 60 years old, you can improve endurance, skill, whatever. But the rate will be very different than you are a teenager. The sensitive period is the onset of the growth spurt. Aerobic capacity emphasis. After peak, after deceleration of growth, you move to aerobic power. The definition of aerobic capacity is no lactic accumulation or less than 4 millimole of lactate. Aerobic power is interval training practically. Lactate accumulation, lactate tolerance, and lactate removal. So very gradually moving to it. I will have the charts identified later on. Again, the reference is Kobayashi. Very clear indication that approximately 1 year prior to the age of PHB, which means that onset of the growth spurt, when it's fully exploitable. And this US swimming, I don't want to get into the details, I just want to use some references. Strengths, always trainable. 2 windows for females, and we do not know why. The first one immediately after PHB, possibly growth. And the second one is quite obvious, the onset of the menarche, because they have full hormonal maturation. No hypertrophy is possible. And for boys, it's 12 to 18 months after peak height velocity, and growth decelerates when the hormonal system is ready for hypertrophy. Speed, always trainable. Quite interesting, 2 windows. 7 to 9 years of age for males, the first one, and the second is 13 to 16 years of age. Look at the difference between boys and girls. Females 6 to 8, the first window, and 11 to 13, the second window. Huge differences between males and females, and remember, it is all based on chronological age. The first, and again, we do not have to worry much about the chronological age here. It's a major paradigm shift in speed training. You have to train speed. Males and females, all ages, all sports, all year round. Major paradigm shift. Meaning that when you finish the warm-up, there is no metabolic fatigue, there is no central nervous system fatigue. That's the best time to do a very low volume, maximum intensity speed work. No interference with anything else what you want to do after, because the volume is so low. Basically, you have fully recovered when you go and do the second part of the training sessions. Imagine, so basically this is, you are firing the muscles at the highest possible rate. Nervous system, CNS training, and muscle, neuromuscular training. Imagine that if your athletes are doing it 200 times a year, in 5 years, that 1,000 speed sessions. Obviously, I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, I will get back into it, but if you want to look at the first window, is 6 and 8, 7 and 9, girls and boys. Change of direction, linear, lateral, multidirectional speed. Segmental speed, for example, kicking the soccer ball, the lower leg speed, or spiking a volleyball, baseball, the segmental speed is a very important part of nervous system training here practically. And the duration of the interval will be less than 5 seconds. Very short, full recovery. The second window is energy system training. Remember, this is central nervous system window. This is energy system training, anaerobic electric power and anaerobic electric capacity. Linear, lateral, multidirectional, and chaotic speed. I'm borrowing this term from Mark Verstegen. You know Mark he's one of the top fitness coaches in the US. And chaotic speed is when you are reacting to the opponent movement. And you have to train for it. Duration of the interval between 5 and 20 seconds, and full recovery between the intervals. Again, as I mentioned before, speed should be trained only regardless of any of phases of training. It should be trained at the end of the warm-up as we discussed, and you still need block loading of speed training to develop the energy systems. And this is happening at the end of the specific specific preparatory phase and pre-competitive phase. And I will show you charts when it should be blocked in, because you need to develop the energy systems. Yeah? Speed training blocks should be longer during the sensitive periods for speed training, obviously. Skills, 8-11 females, 9-12 for males. More precisely, before the beginning of the growth spurt. And that can happen 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we know precisely that until the growth spurt starts, skills are highest rate of return in skill training. Again, all research indicates that 8 to 12, 8 to 13, and the high possibility of acquiring various motor skills are revealed at age 10 to 12. After the onset of PhD, acquiring motor skills is complicated by disorders in motor coordination during PhD, and later by the formation of individual forms of motor coordination after puberty. So the growth spurt start, it still can develop skills, but it's much more complex. That's why in figure skating, diving, gymnastics, you have to develop all of those specific skills before the growth spurt, very early. You cannot develop it when you are 13, 14, 15 years of age. We specialize in late specialization sports in 14, 15, 16. Those athletes very often retiring for figure skating and diving and gymnastics. There's a difference between. They cannot learn those skills. Longer levers, higher center of gravity, bigger muscle mass, and the fear factor. The smaller you are, the less the fear factor is. The taller you are, the more you worry about falling and getting into trouble. There's a review article. It's the golden age of learning skills, they call it in many countries. In England, it is called the skill-hungry years. The skill-hungry years. And most authors agree between 9 and 12 years of age. Yeah, we don't need to get into it. Here is adolescent maintenance. Remember Alexander Debatsy, the diver? At age 13, competing against this kind of guys, as you can see. He won the gold medal at the games in Kuala Lumpur. The coaching staff were very happy because it's obvious the Olympics is coming and it will be a medal. Alex started to grow and his skills are gone. Couldn't really compete at the highest level. But the coaches were very smart. They asked that, okay, we get into maintenance, we don't worry, we know that we cannot change this. We will maintain him through the growth spurt. And that's what we need to do all sports, maintain them through the growth spurts. And the maintenance man, they asked Alex he come every single training session. He was asked to coach the 6, 7, 8, and 9 years old. He was 14 years old then. And he mentioned to me that this was the biggest learning for him in diving. Because he was always on the receiving end. And do this, do the point the toes, etc., etc., etc. And then he had to make the observation, make the corrections. He learned so much about diving, which helped him in his practice. So it's very useful sometimes the 17, 18, 19 years old players to go there and coach at the 6, 7, 8, 9 years because they learn about the game. They learn about decision making and so on. So, and again, Alex finished the growth spurt and the rest is history, Olympic medalist and World Championship medalist. So it's a very important word, adolescent maintenance. Flexibility, you see, it's declined with age. Obviously, the lady is in a very good maintenance program. And he's also a gymnastics coach who is a sports scientist also, who studied flexibility and his recommendation 6 to 10, and you maintain it after, and you will pay special attention during PHV, during the rapid growth. However, Keith is also mentioned that this lady here get into this position 2 hours ago and she's unable to get out of the position. Horror stories of Chinese attaining the stretching methods, gymnastics. This is the way not to do flexibility training. PNF, that stretching, as you can see. Imagine the poor little guy there. They're crying. They're hanging in there for a couple of hours to work on shoulder flexibility. The next one is absolute horror story. You see they're hanging backwards. And look at the shoulder positions there. And again, they're in diapers. They're in diapers. So that's not the way to develop. The Chinese method is very simple. You have a basket of eggs, 100. You pick an egg, throw it against the wall. 97 broken, who cares? 3 survives, these are our champions. So we cannot afford this kind of technology here in Canada or any other country, as a matter of fact. So this is the onset of the growth spurt, peak after growth, this is the biomarkers. And the onset of the menarche for females, as I said, usually 1 year after PHV. Speed wants skill and suppleness before the growth spurt. And speed too will be developed for girls that will be 11, 13 years of age. Aerobic capacity after the onset of the growth spurt. Aerobic power after deceleration. And strength after menarche. You train all of those 5 S's all the time, but they are priorities. You always train endurance, speed, skill, suppleness by the priorities, by the biological windows, what we try to emphasize. Same with boys. Speed, skill, suppleness before the onset of the growth spurt, aerobic capacity, aerobic power, and 12, 18 months after PHV next is strength training, Olympic lifting, free weights. Planning, very important part of the preparation. Imagine how difficult this planning, put all the luggage or whatever you call that, and the hundreds of people on the top of one single. The good news in Bahrain that they don't have any liability issues. They can load as many as can. If someone dies, that's too bad. It just happened. This is an interesting chart by a colleague of mine. He's very famous in hockey, Dr. Harvey Wenger. I don't know if in hockey you know him. He worked with the national hockey team for 2 decades, the LA Kings, Rangers when they won the Stanley Cup, also St. Louis, so he's a hockey expert and a physiologist. And his interpretation of performance. The performance gear is driven by psychology, skills, technical skills, strategies, emotion, character, environment, and physiology. And these medium gears are driving the central gear of training and performance. And obviously you have smaller gears there, which are driving physiology, which will drive the performance gear. Very similar, the skills, whatever you call it, open, closed, whatever. And the strategies, what you are using. The small gears will be driving the medium and the central gear. Same with emotions, character, environment, and physiology. And please don't blink now. Keep your eyes open, because this is coaching. And if you have one blind spot, you are in trouble, because you will not have good training and good performance, because something is missing. The gears are jammed. So as a coach, you have to ensure that no blind spot. And just to tell you how complex this is, that obviously these gears are much more complex, all of these gears. This is the gear of physiology alone. So we have the technology, we know how to do it, but you need to work hard and have the patience to put this all together. It's a very nice way to explain what's happening in coaching. I will provide you an electronic copy of a step-by-step planning of an annual plan for pubertal athletes. It's about 120 steps from the beginning to the end. You design and quantify an annual training program. Oh, we don't need that. Very briefly, periodization. This is an example of an annual training program for short track and long track speed skating. I have a very challenging job. I'm an advisor for the short track speed skating for the Sochi Olympic Games. And those guys are very sophisticated, as you know. They are top of the world. And so I am master coach for both men's and women's head coaches. And I meet in Montreal every month practically. It's a great learning process, because we brainstorm practically all the time. You know that. Have you tried this? Have you tried it? You must keep one thing is very important. If you do not make mistakes, you don't learn. You are following the others and you are behind with technologies and decision making and everything else. You have to take calculated risks when you are designing the programs in order to improve. Another example of Learn to Compete is an athletics a jump program. You can see the distribution of the 5 S's during the annual plan, and this is the volume and intensity of training down there. Planning, you need a plan. See, these guys are talking to each other. We should drive that spot down. If we shoot there, we have the meat. So you need your plan. How to design that annual plan. Identify the first competition of the year and the last competition of the year. In team sports, it's given to you. It's the season. You cannot change it. Your option is with exhibition games and friendlies. In individual sports, you can select the competition which is beneficial for your athletes. Then you identify how long is the transition phase. Transition is rest practically. It is longer than 4 weeks, you are detraining significantly. So you can afford 2 weeks of passive rest and 2 weeks of active rest before you go back, otherwise you detrain significantly. As you all know, the decay of the aerobic system is very fast, and the decay of the strength system is very steady. It lasts you very long. Then you have to look back how much time you have for pre-competitive preparation, specific preparation, and general preparation. General preparation is general skills, general energy system, general tactics. The younger the athlete, the longer the general preparation, obviously. The older the athlete, the longer the specific preparation. Then you will spot the volume of training, progressive overload. When you start specific work, obviously everything becomes more specific and more challenging. Volume declines and get into maintenance mode during the competitive period. Then you plot the intensity of training. Then you increase volume, you maintain intensity, and the volume comes down, the intensity comes up, and we'll follow the competition schedule. After that, you introduce mesocycles and microcycles. Planning backwards. When you do an annual plan, you always plan backwards, as we have seen in the former slides. This is a mesocycle here, and we'll elaborate, all the mesocycle. A mesocycle is a number of microcycles or training weeks. For example, this is a 3-1. It is 4 weeks or 4 microcycles. 3 loading microcycles closed down with a recovery microcycle. That's a mesocycle. And within the microcycles, you have 6, 1, 6, 1, 6 days of training or competition and 1 day off. You always have a day off. So you elaborate the microcycles and mesocycles, and then you get down to identify the distribution of the workload. General preparation, 50% will be devoted to endurance training, 20 to strength, 5 to speed, 20 to skill, 5 to suppleness. These numbers are coming out on test results and performance results. This 50 here can be 20 if they have very good aerobic capacity. And strength will be 50 because that's what they need more strength training. Or 20, 20 and this will be 40. So the numbers are all based on needs and testing and observations. And the good news about this is that you will see the proportions, what you are doing in a phase of training. At the moment, many of you have no idea what is the proportion of aerobic training, your strength training, your skill training, etc., etc. You are guessing. And obviously, as we move into specific phase, everything is changing, and we are in maintenance mode, in competition, and speed and skill is emphasized. And all of these numbers are based on individual needs or team needs, based on empirical observations, test results, and performance results. Reactive periodization, as I mentioned, to the pubertal athlete, biological markers, monitoring the growth spurt, reacting to the velocity of growth, as you have seen, remember those curves. Adjusting training, competition, and recovery programs, design, and activities. Adolescent maintenance. Very important message. If there is a conflict between long-term plan and competition demands, the first must take priority. When you are doing adolescent maintenance, performance is secondary. Because if you're focusing on improvement and competition, you have a lot of injured athletes. And I know it's very difficult, because as a coach, your win-lose ratio is very important. So educate parents, educate the clubs, how important aerobic maintenance is. We try to do it at the higher level, soccer association, Steve is doing with hockey, etc. And more information is getting down there. This is an example of 3 14-year-old athletes. This is the early maturer, average maturer, and late maturer. Skill training, this guy is very limited in skill training. The growth spurt starts and with inhibition on skill learning. These guys have much more time to hold skills and speed. Remember at age 8 or 9, you have a 98% developed nervous system. The sky is the limit to develop agility, balance, coordination, and speed. Speed trainability, again, the 2 windows as we discussed, but it should be trained all year round, as we discussed before. Suppleness before 10 years of age, develop and maintain through. Endurance trainability. The optimum for A is the onset of the growth spurt, onset of the growth spurt, onset of the growth spurt. So this will be the distribution. If, for example, then A is starting the growth spurt, and these two guys are going to train under this, they will be overtrained. If B will be trained with, A will be trained, B what C, he will be undertrained. Because they're missing the optimal involvement. And strength trainability, 12, the onset of the menarche, or 12 months after PHV, A, B, and C intervention. And again, if you don't do the intervention, then you are undertraining or overtraining some of the athletes. Again, we have seen this, I took you through on this before. Remember, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. I remember for a long time I used to be this guy up there, and then I was moved down here, and lately I'm down here, so it's relatively safe, you know, when taking mistakes. An excellent textbook, a very nice summary of advanced sport exercise science series. And remember, we will get a copy of this, you don't have to write it down. Fantastic book about tapering and peaking. Mujica is a world-class expert, #1 in the world, as a matter of fact. And the big advantage of this book, that this is the only article in the literature which talks about how to peak in team sports. All the research is done in swimming and track and field. All the research, because of the measurable components. But there's a big chapter on how to taper in team sports. Talent identification and development in sport. Joseph Baker, University of Toronto, excellent little book. Team Noakes, if you're in endurance sports, the law of running, that's the 4th edition. It's also good for weight training because about 1,800 pages. Fantastic. All the research, all the references, it's unbelievable. He's based in Cape Town, and his recent book is Challenging Beliefs. He's challenging beliefs of the coach. We believe in the old stuff. Remember insanity? And challenging everybody, you know, that think outside of the box. Pediatric anaerobic performance, if you coach under age 10, under age 12, an excellent book, source of information. Talent is overrated. Coleman. Bounce. Very good reading for figure skating coaches also. A lot of figure skating references there. He's a former international caliber table tennis player. He's a sport journalist. So the book is readable, fantastic, and the information is mind-blowing. Talent code. Bounce is I would recommend you to read Bounce. It's very important. Outliers, we discussed this before. That's not important. This is very important. Take an app, change your life. As a matter of fact, I will forward again 2 articles. One is from Dr. Chuck Samuels. I don't know if you know him, based in Calgary. He's the #1 sleep expert in sport in Canada. And he reviews some of the issues in sleep. And I have another article. I was just recently in Palo Alto, California, Stanford University. They have one of the biggest sleep research institutes in the world in there. And they reverse the angles, because all the research is on sleep deprivation and sleep problems. And they look at extended sleep. NCAA basketball players slept 10 to 12 hours. And look at the impact on. Very positive. Increased reaction, better reaction time, better coordination, better decision making, better memorization skills as a student. So it's very beneficial. As a matter of fact, I strongly believe that the #1 training factor for all athletes and for all sports is sleep. If you don't sleep well, it doesn't matter what else you try to do or what else you want to do. So that's something very important. I will have an electronic copy of both of the articles, so you will be able to go through on this. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, I hope I have the answers.